Hi everyone, this is Miss Swenson, and today I'm going to be talking to you about financial aid and how to pay for college. We're going to talk about a few different things. First of all, we are going to review the different types of financial aid that you are eligible for. We'll talk about how you get that money by completing the FAFSA or Minnesota Dream Act, and then we'll talk about what happens next. What happens after you send your FAFSA off to colleges and how you hear back. First of all, let's talk about the different types of financial aid. There are three main types. The first type is scholarships. That's the one that everybody's heard of and that everybody's familiar with. Scholarships are given based on achievement, so they will look at things like your GPA, your involvement in extracurricular activities, and many times scholarships will also consider certain types of identities. So there are scholarships specific for Latinx identifying students. There are scholarships specifically for Black identifying students, and there are also scholarships available for students who are first-generation college students. The second type of financial aid is called grants, and grants are given just based on your family income. So what's really great is that they're accessible to everyone as long as your family meets the income requirements. They're not looking at your GPA or anything else you've done. Most students at Hiawatha are eligible for anywhere between $6,000 and $12,000 in grants, and grants are great because it is free money. You do not have to pay it back. And then there are loans. So loans, of course, are money that you borrow and pay back after you graduate. A lot of people get really nervous when we start talking about student loans, and we'll talk a lot more about student loans as we get farther along in the process. But what I want you to know right now is that there are many, many different options for how you can pay back loans, and they can be, when you borrow wisely, a good tool to invest in your education so you can earn a college degree. It is our responsibility as your college counselors to make sure that you understand the ins and outs of borrowing student loans. We are always going to be honest with you about how much would be too much to take out and how much we think is safe. So you can trust us for that, and you can also trust that we are going to talk a lot more about student loans as the year goes on. Before we go any further, I want to take a second to also review the difference between net price and sticker price. So you've probably heard us say that as you've been researching colleges, you don't actually want to be looking at how much the website says it costs to go there. And here's why. What you're seeing on the website is something called the sticker price. That's what it costs before any financial aid is applied. Once you apply to college and receive your financial aid package with all of the scholarships, grants, and loans that you're eligible for, that essentially works like a discount. It's like they take all of that financial aid and they subtract it off your sticker price. So what you actually pay is your net price. It's the amount that is your financial aid subtracted from the tuition and fees, and it's a little bit different for everybody because it depends on your GPA, it depends on your family's income, it depends on a whole bunch of things. So that's why we always say you're never going to be 100% sure exactly how much a college is going to cost you until you apply. But here are some average net prices for HCHS alumni at 3 colleges that we've had multiple students attend. So at the Minnesota State University Mankato, the sticker price is $22,000, but after financial aid, we've seen students pay $4,000 to go there. At St. Olaf, the sticker price is a whopping $62,000, but on average, our alumni at St. Olaf are only paying $2,000 a year to go there after financial aid is applied. And at the U of M, the sticker price is about $27,000, and the average net price that we've seen our alums pay is about $3,500. So as you can see, there is a huge difference between what you're seeing on the website and what you'll probably end up paying in real life. So let's talk about how you can get the best net price possible and get the most financial aid. The biggest thing I want everybody to remember is that your college application is your scholarship application. And what I mean by that is that as you're submitting college applications in the next few weeks, colleges are not only going to look at that application and consider whether or not you're going to be admitted, they're also deciding how much to give you in scholarship money. So they're using one application both to decide whether or not you'll get in and to decide how much money they're going to give you. You also want to make sure that you are applying for financial aid early. So the FAFSA is available to fill out starting on October 1st, and we will talk later in this video about all of the different resources that you have access to get help filling it out. My other piece of advice is to make sure that you are continuing to work hard and get great grades. Your senior year grades matter. We unfortunately have seen some of our alumni kind of slide off at the end of their senior year. And what ends up happening is that the college then can reduce the amount of scholarships that they are offering you. They are offering you a scholarship amount based on a GPA that you applied with. And if that GPA changes, if it drops, they can take back some of that scholarship money. And last, if you want an idea of what your actual net price is going to be, there is a tool you can use called a net price calculator. Every single college is required to provide one on their website, and you can ask your college counselor for help in using this tool to get an idea of what your net price might be. So let's talk about how you get access to all of this amazing financial aid. So for scholarships, like we talked about, in most cases, scholarships are going to be given directly by colleges. So when you're applying to college, they are looking not only to decide how much money or whether or not you get in, but how much money you're going to get. And sometimes colleges have their own additional scholarship opportunities that you can apply for. There are also many scholarship opportunities available from private organizations, and there is a list of scholarships available on Google Classroom that you can apply for right now, and that'll be updated throughout the year. Grants are given by filling out the FAFSA or the Minnesota Dream Act, and loans are also given based on what you put into the FAFSA. So who fills out what? There are two different forms here. The FAFSA is used by students who are U.S. citizens or permanent residents. The Minnesota Dream Act is used by people with most types of visas, as well as undocumented people and people who have DACA. In order to apply for the Minnesota Dream Act, you must have attended high school in Minnesota for at least 3 full years by the time you graduate. Another important note with the Minnesota Dream Act is that it only offers grant money for college in the state of Minnesota. So if you are someone who is going to be filling out the Minnesota Dream Act, you are eligible for the most financial aid you're going to get at colleges right here in Minnesota. What do you need to fill out the FAFSA and the Dream Act? So this is where you're going to need some information from your parents. In order to fill out the FAFSA, you need 2020 tax returns from your parents and also your 2020 tax returns if you filed. You may also hear tax returns referred to as a 1040 form. That's what we're looking for to fill out the FAFSA and the Dream Act. If you have not filed your taxes yet, or if your parents haven't filed taxes, please talk to your college counselor. We can help you get that figured out and get connected with some resources to help you get those filed. You will also need W-2 forms if you and your parents are filing taxes. Those are usually stored in the same folder or in the same forms, so those should be right there. If you did not file taxes, make sure you get that W-2 form. That's the form from your employer that shows how much you made in a certain year. If your parents own any stocks, real estate, or businesses, they need to know the value of those stocks, real estate, or businesses. If it applies to you and your family, you would also need to know the amount of child support that your family either pays or your parent is receiving. You will need to know dates of birth and social security numbers for you and your parents. And a quick note here, if you are someone who has a social security number, but your parents don't, you can still fill out the FAFSA. What we do is enter all zeros for your parents in place of that social security number. And if your parents have social security numbers, we're going to need to make sure that we know those. And then the last thing is an estimated amount of what is currently in your parents' bank account and in your bank account if you have one. Sometimes people ask if you are required to provide parent information. And in most cases, yes, but there are a few common exceptions. If you yourself have a child, that you financially or physically support more than 50% of the time, you don't need to provide parent information. If you are someone who is an unaccompanied minor, which is a fancy way of saying you are living on your own, but maybe your living situation isn't super stable, you don't necessarily have a consistent place that you are staying, you may be able to get out of providing parent information. And then if you only live with one of your biological parents or just one legal guardian, you only have to report information for that parent or guardian and a step parent if they've remarried. So if you are someone who has just lived with your mom your entire life and don't have contact with your dad, then you just have to put in information about your mom. If any of these situations apply to you or you think they might apply to you, but you're not sure, please talk to either me or Brian, and we can help you figure out if you fall into one of these exceptions for providing parent information. One other thing that comes up is sometimes parents think that by providing their information on the FAFSA, they are like committing to financially support their student through college, and that's not true. Putting information into the FAFSA does not mean that your parents have to support you. We know that isn't something that every single parent can do, but parent information is required for most people to get financial aid. So let's talk about when you can fill out the FAFSA or DREAM Act. I mentioned earlier that the form opened on October 1st. We are going to have 2 FAFSA nights here at school on October 13th and October 14th. You would only need to come to one of those if you wanted to get help with your FAFSA then. Those are going to happen from 4:30 to 7:30 p.m. And we will be available to help you and your parents do your FAFSA right then. If you have study hall, that would also be a really great time to do your FAFSA. That's if your parents are comfortable with you bringing their tax information into school. You can also see us before or after school to sign up for or to fill out your FAFSA. Just make sure you sign up in advance so we know to plan on you coming. And you can also do it on your own. We will post resources on Google Classroom that will enable you to do that. It usually takes about 45 minutes to finish. I will say that FlexBlock is not a good option for getting help with the FAFSA because it does take a little bit longer usually than we have time for in FlexBlock. Brian and I will be here to support you in person on FAFSA nights, during study hall, before and after school. If you want someone one-on-one to sit down and help you fill it out, we are there for that. If those times don't work out, then we are going to post how-to guides, videos, and frequently asked questions on Google Classroom, so you will have all of the resources that you need to be able to get this super important step done. Let's talk about then what happens after you get it all filled out and send it off to colleges. So as part of the process of filling out the form, you will enter in all of the colleges that you plan on applying to. Once you do that, the FAFSA or DREAM Act gets sent to all of those different schools. The schools then review your financial aid application, and once you're admitted, you will receive a letter that explains how much the school is going to offer you in scholarships, grants, or loans. This usually happens in January or February. Sometimes you will also be asked for extra documentation. If you are a student who is applying to highly competitive schools like St. Olaf or McAllister, then you can plan on filling out the CSS profile, which asks for some additional financial information. Your college counselor will reach out to you about that if you are one of those people. Sometimes students are also selected for a process called verification, which basically means that you have to submit some extra documentation showing that what you filled into the FAFSA is correct. We are here to help you out with that. You students usually find out about that in December or January. And lastly, I want to talk about what we're going to be doing later this week in advisory. So if you are someone who completes the FAFSA, you need to make something called a FSA ID. And an FSA ID is basically a secure username and password that allows you to get into the online form to fill out the FAFSA. Creating an FSA ID only takes about 5 to 10 minutes. It's a really easy process, but you do need to know your Social Security number and your name as it appears on your Social Security card. These usernames and passwords are tied to your social security number, so no one else can apply for financial aid in your name. So it's super important that later this week you know your social security number and your name as it appears on your card. Brian and I will be visiting you in advisory this week to help you through this process as a group, and we are excited to see you then. We're so excited to help you with all parts of the financial aid process, and please let us know if you have any questions.